Good evening and welcome to this segment on autism awareness. I will be hosting this show with two other people, and my name is Comfort. Just a little bit about myself. I am a third year pharmacy student with a special interest in autism, and I also have a niece who is autistic. I will now introduce my other two co-hosts who will be doing the show with me. Their names are Shirley and Dufie, and I will ask Shirley to go first and introduce herself.
Hello, good evening. My name is Shirley, a mother of three kids, and I have a son with autism. I'm a retired nurse and a stay at home mom at the moment.
And I'll invite Dufie to introduce herself as well.
Hi, my name is Dufe. I'm a mother of two, and I have a child on the spectrum as well. Um, I'm a full-time mom, stay at home. So yeah, That's it.
All right, okay. So before we get into what this show is all about, guess we'll spend some time I'll just ask you guys a couple of questions about yourselves. So you both mentioned you've got children on the spectrum. Um, I guess just give us a little bit of history of how you found out, thoughts and feelings in that particular moment. I guess we'll start with Shirley.
Thanks, Comfort. I have a son on the spectrum. He just turned 7 about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. We found out quite early, or let's say we thought he might be on the spectrum when he was around 9 months, getting to 1 year. We saw a lot of milestones not being met, and yes, but he was officially diagnosed to be having autism at the age of 5. Yeah, at the age of 5. And yes, it's been a long journey. It's been tough, but we are taking it a step at a time, and yeah, we're learning a lot of things on the way, and we are finding new things as well. So yeah, that's the little bit I can say about myself and my son.
Yeah. And what about you, Dufie? Go ahead.
Yeah. So for mine, it's a daughter. She's a girl. She turned 7 in August, and she hit all her milestones when she was growing up. She started talking at the age 11 months. She was doing everything basically. She was picking things up really quickly. And then when she was about 15 months, in fact, my dad was the first person to realize that she didn't respond to her name. That was the first thing that came up. That when you call her, she wouldn't react at all. So it became like a thing that we kept calling her all the time to see if she'll react. And then she started nursery, and then the concerns just kept coming. So we took the necessary steps, spoke to the GP, referral to a pediatrician, and then at the age of 4, we had the official diagnosis that she was on the spectrum. So our journey has been a difficult one. We're still on there, but we're learning as we go along, and we've had a lot of improvements, ups and downs, I have to say, but it's been a journey. It's been a journey. So I guess we're learning as we go.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's what this show is all about, just putting that education out there. And I think it's key, seeing as both of you have been personally impacted, or at least you have people within your lives who are on the spectrum. So you have that um, experience that, I personally wouldn't have from your perspectives as mothers of children. So yes, hopefully you'll be able to share what you've learned from your journeys across with other people, and hopefully they can benefit from it as well. Um, so I'm obviously both of you, um, your journeys are quite different. Obviously, one found out at 5 years, one had kind of well an inkling now about 15 months. Did you know anything about autism before you started, well, before you found out, or before your children were officially diagnosed with autism, or did you know anything at all, or did you not know anything? I don't know who wants to go first.
So I had heard of autism. I didn't really know a lot about it. I knew it was a neurodevelopmental issue that some kids had, but I hadn't really paid attention to it. So I remember when Penelope started nursery, and I think it was 2 weeks in, the teacher pulled me aside and asked, "Have you heard about autism?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I know it's a thing that affects children." And she said, "You might want to look into it for your daughter." And I remember crying all the way from the nursery to my house, which is about a 15-minute walk. And people were just staring when I was walking back home. And I got home, and the first thing I went to was my computer, and I typed it in and just started absorbing the information on there. So yeah, that was my first dive into autism.
And what about you, Shirley?
Well, I knew one or two things about autism. Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I'm a retired nurse and stay-at-home mom. I'm not retired, but I'm a stay-at-home mom at the moment. And yeah, I used to work in the mental health sector, so I had one or two things. It wasn't my where I specialized, but I had one or two things about it. And when we saw that our son was not meeting his milestones, we started reading about it, but we were still in denial, actually. I mean, there were things that we saw and we were like, oh, he's going to pick up, he's going to do better. But then it got to a point we just had to accept and realize, and we delved more into it and then started learning more about it to understand and to know how to help him and how to help ourselves as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess in similar-ish situations, not knowing a little but not a lot, and certainly not enough to be to kind of go into it, and to be put in that kind of situation. So I mean, a lot of people might be in similar situations, like you guys were at the beginning. So again, like I said, so this might be a very good, useful thing for them to learn about your experiences and also how you've dealt with it as well. And that's exactly what this show will be about. And just before we get into what we're going to discuss for today, which is just a general overview of what autism is, and some myth or fact busting kind of session that we're going to have. Just a disclaimer that obviously what you're about to listen to is purely just information from parents and people who are interested in autism like myself, and just wanting to raise awareness on the issue and just share a little bit about our life experiences just to help you guys or to help somebody else. So we're not professionals, we're not experts in the field by any means. It's just purely from what we have done in our own research and also, like I said, personal experiences that parents have gone through, and also what I've seen and experienced myself. So that's the disclaimer. So we will get onto the session. So autism. What is autism? Some of you may know, some of you may not know. But by definition, according to the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, it is a developmental disability that can cause significant social, educational, and behavioral challenges. It's not a medical condition that can be cured. It is something that you are born with and will be present for your whole life. Individuals can go on to lead independent lives, and it is a spectrum, has a whole range of different symptoms which varies from person to person, and it's true for some but not all who may have the condition. So you can get some people who may present with certain symptoms or certain kind of presentations of autism, but it may not be the same for everybody else who may be on the spectrum as well. So we will kind of delve into that, some of the different opinions that some people may have about people who have autism, whether they're true or not. I'm not sure if Shirley or Dufia want to come in at this point.
Yes. So because we've got listeners who might not speak English and we've got some who speak just Twi, I think I'll translate or summarize what you just said in Twi. So that our listeners listening from the continents, from Europe and from Ghana, will also get what we are talking about. So I'll just go ahead. Yeah. Yɛbɛsa amamakwa ababiem aba Jakwa Health Show ne so. Ɛnnɛ nea yɛka ho asɛm yɛ biribi a yɛfrɛ no autism. Na sɛdeɛ yɛhyɛ aseɛ aka no, meyɛ maame a mewɔ ba a ɔwɔ autism. Na me sister Dufie nso kan so ɔno nso wɔ ba a ɔwɔ autism. Yɛnua Comfort a wɔdi dwumadie no anim no nso no, ɔno nso wɔ fan sɛ ba ketewa anaasɛ ne nua ba. Na n'ani gye sɛ wobɛsua biribi afa saa topic no ho. Na sɛ yɛkɔ CDC a yɛka sɛ Centers for Disease and Control for hɔ a wɔn na wɔhwɛ yareɛ ne nneɛma ɛkɔ so wɔ wiase nyinaa so a wɔn kyerɛ mu ma yɛhu sɛ yɛka sɛ autism a ɛyɛ disability. Nti no ɛyɛ biribi a ɛdi wunya kakra wɔ nneɛma bi mu. Nneɛma bi te sɛ nkɔmmɔdidie mu ne nipa ho nkitahodie afei nso no adesua mu na suban mu no ɛyɛ biribi a ɛtumi di wunya kakra anaasɛ ɛtumi ma wo pontuo wɔ saa nneɛma no mu no ɛtwe kɔ akyire kakra. Afei nso sɛ yɛtoa so a ɔmo ma yɛhu sɛ yɛka sɛ autism a ɛyɛ a na yɛ mu bi ma yɛadwene kɔyɛ yɛ sɛ ɛyɛ yareɛ. Autism yɛka sɛ obi wɔ autism a ɛyɛ adwene no anaasɛ nipa ne bɔbea saa na yɛde bɔ no nti ɛnyɛ yareɛ te sɛ deɛ ebi yɛbɛka sɛ obi anya diabetes anaa biribi saa no. Autism ɛnyɛ yareɛ a yɛbɛtumi asa. Ɛyɛ ade a ɛbɛka wo ho w'abrabɔ nyinaa, wo su ne wo ban, saa na ɛteɛ. So obi nso wɔ autism nkyerɛ sɛ n'abrabɔ esi anaasɛ ɔntumi nyɛ hwee. Obetumi ayɛ nneɛma bebree. Ne nyinaa wɔ kwan a yɛbɛfa so aboa nipa no ama ne tu mpɔn anaasɛ ama wakɔ n'anim wɔ wiase anaasɛ abrabɔ a yɛwɔ mu no. Ɛna afei nso no, deɛ etwa toɔ no, yɛka autism a ɛnyɛ ade koro. Wodi nkwadaa mmienu si hɔ a wɔn wɔ autism a wɔn nya ade koro. Wonya ade koro. Autism yɛsɛ spectrum ayɛ sɛ kwaeɛ. Wogyina akyire kuhaa nso wura mu a na wo sɛ dua biara wɔ ne sibire. Nti obiara deɛ ɛyɛ sononko wɔ mu. Nti nneɛma bi wɔ hɔ a yɛbɛka a wobɛhu ne wɔ abɔfra bi ho anaa panyin bi ho. Wonhu bi wɔ abɔfra bi ho. Ba abɔfra foforɔ nso wonhu bi wɔ ne ho. But na wɔn nyinaa nso no wɔ autism anaasɛ wɔn wɔ on the spectrum sɛdeɛ yɛbɛka no no. Nti nea ebi nuabaa no kae no tɔfa na mabɔ no no. Yɛbɛtoa so afiri hɔ.
Yeah. And also just to add on, the exact cause of the condition is not known. So, but research indicates that it's a combination of genetic and environmental factors. So it's not one thing alone that is causing, well, as of right now anyway, there isn't evidence to suggest that is one thing alone that is causing people to be autistic, but rather just a combination of a load of different things. It also has nothing to do with the upbringing or social status of an individual. So nothing to do with their family and how they've been brought up by their parents or grandparents or whoever it is that brought them up. And it is a condition that affects 1 in 100 children within the UK. So 1 in 100 children in the UK have a diagnosis of ASD, which is the autism spectrum disorder. So that is quite an interesting fact that we found that it would be useful to share.
Nti sɛdeɛ nuabaa no kaeɛ no, nwoma mu nimdifoɔ ahwehwɛ mu a na ɛbɛsi nnɛ no, yɛntumi nsi pi nka sɛ adeɛ wei na ɛma ne ba saa anaasɛ sɛdeɛ abusua bi tetee ne ba anaasɛ sɛdeɛ abusua bi tee. Na mmom yɛhu sɛ nipa no wɔ bɔbea sɛdeɛ Nyankopɔn bɔɔ wo a wode baeɛ no saa na wode ba. Nhoma mu nimfoɔ da so yɛ nhwehwɛmu ne ɛyi pɛ sɛ yɛhu baabi pɔtee a ɛfiri, but ɛnyɛ abusua bi anaasɛ sɛdeɛ obi te anaasɛ sɛdeɛ obi tete nipa ana ne suban teɛ ɛna ɛma ne ba sɛdeɛ ɛtɔ da yɛn mu bi adwene yɛ yɛn no. Nti nea ɔkaeɛ no ne tɔfa kakra no sɛ ɛyɛ wo bɔbea, saa na yɛde wo nua korɔ no. Ɛna afei nso no sɛ wohwɛ mu a yɛka nipa ɔha, mmɔfra ɔha ɛbɔ mu a baako biara no ɛwɔ saa autism yi a yɛreka ho asɛm no.
Okay, so we will now move on to the myth or fact busting sessions. So we'll state a series of statements, and we would like for you guys as well to put into the comment section, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, whether you think any of these facts are myth, or if they are, any of these statements, are myth, or whether they are indeed fact. So start with the first one, which states, autism affects children and adults, and it is a lifelong condition. So we'll give you about 10 seconds just to type in comments or in the chat whether you think this is myth or fact, and I will hand over to Dufia to give us the answer.
Right. So autism does affect children and adults, and it is a lifelong condition. So that is the truth. I do believe no parent, no mother, nobody wants to have any form of disability. I mean, when we say disability, it ranges from a lot of things. As we know, blindness, deaf, muteness, we have a wide range of disabilities, and nobody wants to be in that situation. But learning how to live with them, the fact that we say it is a lifelong condition does not mean that it impacts your life all negatively all the way. That is what we need to bear in mind, that even though it is a lifelong condition, there are ways of improving it and making your life the best that it can be.
Yeah. I'm not sure if... Okay, we'll move on to the next statement. All children with autism have the same difficulties. All children with autism have the same difficulties. I guess I'll ask if Shirley can come in and answer that, and then maybe after that you can both give us your experiences with your children and what were some of the difficulties that you initially encountered at the start.
Well, the answer is false. All children with autism don't have the same difficulties. It varies, like we said in the beginning.
Yeah, so for us, we have overcome some of the symptoms, like the difficulties that we had from the beginning as time goes on. A lot of things. I say sleep was one of the major difficulties that we had. Even as a baby, she never slept. At some point, I just thought, what is wrong with this child? She never slept. People said she had gas, give her gripe water, colic, whatnot. We tried everything. She just wouldn't. It's like she had a timer in her head, and at 11 p.m. every night it would just go off, and she's up, and she will cry until 4 a.m. constantly, every day. She never missed a day. And so we had to take turns. It was a crazy time in this house. We had to take turns. Fortunately, my sisters were here, so we kind of had a timetable going. That's why we're taking her from 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2, up to then. During the day, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., she wakes up, she's fine. And that was it. That has improved significantly. The other difficulty was about 18 months, she lost all speech. And so communication, which we're still struggling with. is the other difficulty. We have come a long way, but there's still some difficulties there. Potty training, that's another thing. And she has sensory issues as well. So she needs to have something stimulating her in her hands at all times. And that is something that we're struggling with as well. So for us, these are the major difficulties that we have. I mean, in addition to the learning difficulties and everything else, these are the major ones. Other children have difficulties. I mean, when you do speak to doctors, they talk about other things, stymie, echolalia. There's a whole range of other difficulties, but these, the ones that I've mentioned, are the ones that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, we've also come a long way. There are days we sit down and watch him do something and we're like, wow, who knew or who ever thought that this day is ever going to come? Yes, so with Jerohi, we were told he was never going to talk. And okay, just to explain, Jerohi was also ill when he was little. He has been into ICU, been resuscitated and all that. So we were told he was never going to speak. He was not going to walk properly and all that. So all this in addition to knowing that your child is on the spectrum, that was very difficult. He could say one or two words and then all of a sudden they were gone, just like with Penelope. It just went like that. And then it was just all this jargon and gibberish, and it was really hard because you couldn't relate, you couldn't communicate with him. It was quite frustrating, and he's so headstrong, and he would say something in his jargon, and he would look at you like, you should understand what I'm saying. Why are you looking at me confused? And I'll say something and he will look at you confused, and then the meltdowns will come and him rolling on the floor, breaking things, and it was really hard. But when he started nursery and the speech started coming in, it got a bit better. Yeah, right now he can communicate with you with a few errors, but he communicates. He can tell you what he wants to do. So that's where we also see the difference, and the challenging behaviors have reduced a bit, but we have days and weeks that it will just continue on and on and on. It's like a never ending spiral. It just starts and then it just goes down, 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 down. And then one day you have a lucky day where he just bumps up again and he's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. And then so it's taking a day at a time. You never know what it's coming and what's going to be. You just take it a day at a time. Yeah. So we've been through a lot of challenges with him being able to be around people. It still overwhelms him, but at least he's able to go to church and he can tolerate people up to a certain point. So those who know him know that you can come to his house and he will ask you to just leave because you know what, he's overstimulated, so just leave and go. And there are days he won't let anyone leave the house. He will lock the door and keep the keys away. So yeah, it depends on the day. You never know what you're going to have when you wake up. You just let it come as a surprise to you. Yeah.
Okay, so you've both kind of mentioned some key words here. I've heard stimming, I've heard mentioned some of the different conditions as well. Overstimulation, which is some of these things will come onto in later shows as well. So don't feel alarmed if it sounds a bit like, okay, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, we'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. Another question that I was thinking of whilst you guys were speaking, but I think it will come up as we keep on going. One of the statements actually is that people with ASD cannot talk, but obviously Auntie Shirley has kind of shed some light on that. So we'll come to that in a second. I just wanted to ask, in terms of dealing with some of these difficulties that you faced, what were just kind of give us one key thing that you've done. Obviously, in later shows, we'll come back to it, and kind of techniques that you've developed over the years. So for some of the difficulties, as you've mentioned, what were some of the things that you've managed to put in place, or what are you still finding out now that you think has helped or you think will help in the future? I hope my questions make sense. Yeah.
Yes. I think for me, what really helped me was realizing very early on that whatever she does, whether it's a meltdown, a tantrum, crying, banging her head, whatever, there was a reason for it. I think speaking to other parents, what I normally find is we don't know why she's doing that, or we can't understand, there's nothing wrong with him. There is always a reason why they do that. They can't tell you what is going on in their little heads, how they're feeling, they can't express it, but there always is a reason. So what I started earlier on, I think that's what got me through, was always trying to find out the reason behind her behavior, her crying, her head banging, always trying to find out what the reason on. So I'll go through a list. P, are you looking for this? Are you hungry? I'll offer food, drink, take her to the toilet, change her. Are you too hot? I'll go through all that until I finally come to the one that suits her. And you realize the minute that you get to the correct answer, it all stops. So I think mainly it is about knowing your child. We need to learn from them. It's the only way to get through it. Because if you are looking at the behavior and what the actions they're putting on, it is frustrating. If you focus on that action alone, both of you are going to have a very difficult time. So what helped me through it was always trying to see where she's coming from, and it's been a game changer, really.
You're absolutely right. So I always say he's turned me into a detective. I always have to kind of like investigate and find out what's going on. And then, so I didn't say, and then when he was little, he would really get frustrated and throw things around. And we later found out that he had these building blocks, the ones that are like Lego, the big ones. And I realized that whenever I put them in his that play pit or his play area, he will get really upset. And I know he loves playing with them. So I'm like, why are you really upset with that? I'm using that as an example. And then one day I saw the yellow bricks were somewhere else, and I put them back for him to use. Oh my goodness. He nearly broke the TV. He was so upset. And then I decided to take all things yellow out of his play area, out of his toy box, and realized that after that, we were friends again. Everything was normal. So there was a time where yellow was a no-go. You can't put sweet corn in his food. Yellow was a no-go. And then just like Jiffy said, you just have to know your child. You just have to monitor your child and know what is going on and find the reason behind the behavior, the reason why he or she is doing that. And then when you find out, you start building a routine. And with children on the spectrum, the best thing to do is to be consistent with whatever routine that you come up with. Like you have to be very, very determined and stay focused on it for them to get used to that routine. And it makes life bearable and easier when you get to that point where he or she knows, okay, this is the routine. Mommy is not going to mess up my trains again. You want to cook, and then you've got the chopped tomato tins have been lined up as trains, and you have to beg to get one to cook your stew, or you just leave it and go back to Tesco and get your own and cook with them. So yeah, so we've come a long way. Yeah, so just like she said, you have to know your child, and you have to always try and find the reason behind, because they can't really communicate with you. So you have to find out with them what is going on, because nobody can see what's going on in your head. unless the person tells you. And if the person is non-verbal or the person can't express themselves properly, you have to be their advocate. You have to be their spokesperson. You have to find a way in helping them achieve their goal or meet whatever aim they have to meet. Yeah.
Okay, so two key things I'm hearing from this is be a detective. Or at least if you're not a detective, start learning the skills to be a detective because it will serve you very well. It will serve you very well. And also just don't stop trying to find out exactly what is wrong with them because they're doing everything for a reason. I mean, they are kids, taken away from the fact that they're on the spectrum. They're still kids, they're still humans. And even us as adults, you don't just get up and just do random things just because. You have always a reason and a purpose for doing that. And that's exactly the same with kids, whether on the spectrum or not on the spectrum. So keep at it, keep being a detective, and you will find the answer, is what I've gotten from this. Okay, so moving on to statement number 3. ASC, or autism spectrum condition, is present and characteristics can be seen during the first 3 years of life. So in the comments, chats, wherever you're watching from, do you think this is a myth or a fact? If you let us know, and I will come to Shirley first for this one.
Oh, it's a fact. It's true. It's
Yeah.
true. It's noticeable in the first 2, 3 years. Like I said earlier on with my son, we realized after his 9 months review, that's where I realized, okay, he's not meeting a lot of milestones. And then I had my husband who was always like, yeah, they already told us he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. But then you always have, as a mother, you always have this nagging feeling. Even if you don't want to accept it, there's always this small voice in your head that tells you, you know what, push and get to the bottom of this. Yes. So it's definitely true. And like we said before, if you try to know your child and monitor your child carefully, you will actually see all these things and start working towards them. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure, Dufia, do you want to come in or should I?
I think Auntie Cheryl has said it. It is true. Um, as we said, I think a question's come on about what the spectrum is. As we said, a spectrum is like a rainbow. So look at the curve of a rainbow. Just take any curve and imagine that at every point on the curve there are different points and different characteristics and different colors, and that is what the spectrum is. So the different colors on that curve, thousands of colors, and every child with ASD fits somewhere on that curve. And no two children, as we said earlier, will present with the same symptoms. So you might see in the first few years of the child's life, you might see some of these symptoms there. You won't see all of it. And every child will present with different symptoms. But it is about knowing what to look out for and how seriously you take these things. There are a lot of children who have, especially when you come to a country like England, and Auntie Shaw, for instance, um, a lot of she has a lot of languages. She speaks a lot of languages. So in her house, it's very easy to get confused, I'm sure. And you can have a child in such situations who have difficulties communicating because they're hearing too many things, too many languages at the same time, and they don't know what to make of it. So but later on in life, they might pick out the particular language that they're sticking to and they will grow out of it. And that's fine. It doesn't mean they're on the spectrum. But paying attention to the different things that we see as our kids are growing. Yes, denial is there. Every parent, we all go through it. But as mothers, especially, I don't mean no disrespect to our fathers, but as mothers, we always have that inkling at the back of our head that this needs further investigation. So Yes, anti-comfort. It is present in the first few years of life. You see the different symptoms on the spectrum on in the child, and the spectrum means there are different colors on that curve, and every child presents with the different colors on that curve.
Yeah. And I think we'll keep on emphasizing on the fact that everybody is different. I mean, even twins share the same genetic, composition, but they're very different people. So yeah, you cannot compare two people who are on the spectrum or even have been diagnosed with the same type of autism, which we'll come on to again later on. But yes, so moving on, this we've kind of briefly touched on it, I think, in the personal experiences that were being given earlier on, but we'll go more into this. So children with autism do not talk. Is this a myth or a fact? Is this a myth or a fact? And we will start with Dufia on that one.
That is a complete myth. I
Yes.
mean, I know children on the spectrum who are more verbal than than neurotypical children. And then you would find children who start out as nonverbal, but they will pick up on the way. You will find children who are verbal but will lose their language as they go on. I mean, it's a wide range. So that is a complete myth.
Yeah. And you mentioned that with Penelope, she started off verbal, obviously hitting all of her milestones and then lost it later on. So
Oh
how
yes.
was that transition for you guys?
So Penelope is very assertive, even as a child. She knows what she wants and she's not taking no for an answer. So when she started talking, it was mostly things that she wants. And she won't stop until she get it. Whether she's saying it right or not, she'll keep saying it until you get it. Um, she I want this. She would say it. She started calling everybody in the house. My sisters, by 11 months, she could call everybody in this house, and there were a lot of people. So things that she wanted. She loves fruits, so those were the first things that she picks up. Orange, apple, babu, and she wants you to get what she wants you to get what she wants. And then she started picking things up, and she loved music when she was growing up. She would stand here, we'll put YouTube on rhymes, and she would sing and dance, do her little act. And then as she went along, the music started going. She wouldn't sing anymore. The dancing was still there, but the words started leaving her. So it was gradual. And then she stopped asking for things. So she would just come and hold your hand, take you to what she wants, if she can see it. And then the name calling stopped. So it was gradual. It started from her losing the words of the rhymes to stopping asking for things verbally, and then to stopping calling everyone. So it was a gradual process until she was about almost 2 years old, yes. And then that's when all speech went out the window.
Okay. And how did you guys, I mean, how were you feeling in that situation? How did you deal with that?
So fortunately, before all the speech went, we had started looking into it. So I knew it was a possibility, and I mean, I had shed all the tears that I could shed by that point. So by the time she lost it all, there were no more tears to shed. So it was mostly about finding a solution for her, finding a way for her to communicate, looking for a way forward, how best to help her. I mean, it is hard looking at your child trying to tell you something and she can't. It is a difficult thing for a parent to go through. And you say something to her that you would expect her to, respond back or say something, and she she had the cutest way of saying things. She called me Memmy, and it was whenever I heard that growing up, oh P, you have a special name for mommy, Memmy, and seeing her lose that, it breaks your heart. It does, but I guess you keep up the hope that it will come back. That is all you can do. You do everything that you can for the child, and then you do hope that it comes back. It is all I can say to any parent out there who's facing that all hope isn't lost. I mean, it comes in bits and pieces, but you get there eventually. You get there eventually.
Okay. What about you, um, Shirley? How was your experience?
Well, like I said before, he used to have one or two words. The highest was like 3 words that he would speak. And just like Jiffy said before, we've got many languages in this house. So I was speaking German with him, his dad was speaking Tree with him, and then there was English, and I just wanted him to speak all the languages that I knew. So there was Ga in between. Almost every language that I could speak, I was just trying to push it towards him. So it got to a point we just thought, okay, maybe he's confused. Like we said, the denial was he's confused, and we just have to stop. And we stopped and decided to concentrate on the tree alone because obviously when he goes to school, he's going to speak English, right? And it wasn't working. And then we moved on to English to see if it would be easier, and it also wasn't really working. And then at a point we just had to accept and start working towards it. I started reading about SLTs and how it's being done, and then we started getting the communication cards and the pictorials, like using visuals to help him communicate with us, for us to also understand him. And then when he started nursery, he started saying 1 or 2 words again, and then it was gradually coming up. And within, most people don't believe it when you say he's been talking for 2 years now. He's 7, he's been talking for 2 years. So you can imagine that up until he was 4, getting to 5, he couldn't really say a word, or whatever he said to us didn't make sense, but I'm sure it made sense to him. And now, comfort, him now, we can't get him to keep quiet. So he was at church yesterday and he just had to disgrace mommy in front of
Yeah.
everyone. The pastor was like, "Can everybody stand up so we can pray?" And mom was sitting down, and the whole church had to know that mom was sitting down. So yeah, we've got to the point that, let's say, we can't keep him still. We can't let him keep quiet. He's just talking and asking questions. And I think everything that was bottled up is just, you ask yourself, where are all these words coming from? How did he get all of this? It's just coming out of him. So that also makes us see that it's false to say that children with autism do not speak. So just like Duffy said in the beginning, there are variations and stages, and that everybody is different. Yeah. So he started verbal, semicolon, non-verbal, and yeah, for 4 or 5 years non-verbal, and then just exploded one day. He just came in and said good morning, and then didn't stop. It just went on and on and on, and it's been going on for 2 years now. Let's see where we're going with that. Yeah.
And rightly so, rightly so. It's been, it's been quiet all these years. Got to get it all out. And I'm sure when Penelope starts, I think we might need to just isolate Penelope.
Yes, brace yourself. Brace yourself for it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We might need to give her own house,
Yes.
her comfort. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Rightly so, rightly so. Okay, so swiftly moving on. Autism is more common in boys than girls. More common in boys than girls. Myth or fact? And we'll come to Diffie on this one. Myth or fact?
Statistically, that is the truth now. Um, it seems to be more prevalent in boys than it is in girls. Scientists do not know the reason why, but well, our men are special, so I guess.
Not sure if they'd like you saying that, but
Oh, yeah, but that is currently, according to statistics, that is the truth. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, if you look at our panel, we've got a boy and a girl, so 100%, I guess you can say. But I
Yeah.
mean, basically, it is more common in
Yeah,
boys than girls.
there is. My daughter goes to a special school, and in every class that she's been in, there's been more boys than girls. There seems to be more of the boys. I mean, um, to be fair, sometimes I think it's more of the communication bit that makes it more obvious in boys than it is in girls. And
Mm.
man, naturally, you're pekasa, you're talkatives. So, but men can be reserved. So I think it's more showy in boys than it is in girls.
Yeah. And I'm sure we will touch on that in the next
Yeah.
segments and sessions. But we know there's something called masking, and girls can mask a lot, so
Yeah.
they can adapt.
Yeah.
And when you follow the various autism platforms and you read a lot, you can see that lately there are a lot of girls, or let's say women, who are being diagnosed to be autistic, who maybe some are 30 years plus and they are just receiving their diagnosis because they've been masking all along. Yeah, so they are good at, somebody will ask what is masking. They are good at
Makeup.
hiding it, let's say covering it. And yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Um, yes, so we will move on to our next session of the myth or fact. So, children with autism may lack communication skills found in children the same age who are typically developing. I think we've briefly touched on this previously, but I'll let Shirley come in first with this.
Yes, that is true. That is true. So like we said, no two kids are the same. And when you compare, which you shouldn't, because you really get frustrated and sad, comparison is a thief of joy. So which we shouldn't, but when you compare, you see that the communication skills found in them. So you get them to, though, well, my son will normally be with you in the room, but he's not with you. He's not with you. So yeah, the communication skills wasn't really there. So he won't really come up to you and talk to you or ask you a question or anything like that. And when people come to him, he always had his own agenda, for example. Yeah, so it's definitely true. They lack communication skills that is found in other children their same age. Yeah. But you can overcome it.
Yes. And what about you, Difia? What do you?
I guess it is what Auntie Shirley said. Neurotypical. I mean, you will find neurotypical children who do have communication difficulties at some point,
Sorry, let
but
me just interject there, just for people who don't know what neurotypical means. If you just want to define that for us, please.
so neurotypical is just what we would term normally growing kids. So yeah, um, I guess I like that term because if you're saying
Isn't
my
that
child is autistic, then I should say neurotypical children. I don't like to use the word normal because it makes it sound like my child is not normal, and she is very normal. So
mhm.
I guess it's just the difference in where they're coming from and what their abilities and strengths lie. So sorry. Okay, so as I was saying, you will find children who will have difficulties in speaking, even though they are neurotypical children. But most often, the communication difficulties that children with autism have puts a gap between them and children of the same age when you put them together, when you do comparison, as Auntie Shirley said. So these children at a certain age, at every stage, you do get. I mean, when you have kids, they do give you this chart how many words your child should have by every stage. And when you have a child on the spectrum, you realize that as you go along, they have fewer words, or maybe none at all, than they should have at that age. So I guess that's what it refers to.
Yeah. Okay. So next statement: all children with autism go to special education needs schools. I think you both have very different experiences on this, so we quite key. I will start with Divya first. So, what is your experience? I think you mentioned about
Yeah.
Penelope.
Yes. So Penelope goes to a special school. Um, there was a lot of debates about sending her to a special school. A lot of people told me, don't send her to special school. If she goes to a normal school, then she has a better chance of learning and all that. But as parents, we wanted to do what was best for the child at the point that she was in. And when she was ready to start school, she didn't have a lot of words. We felt that there was a lot of things that she needed to overcome. And as Auntie Shirley said in the beginning, consistency is the key for these children. So we wanted an environment where the focus is on her. I mean, when you go to a typical school, there are about 20 kids in the class. My son has 21 kids in his class. Penelope's class, there's only 6 of them, and they have 3 teachers. And so the attention, the focus on her is a lot. And she tends to get attached to people the more you spend time with her, and she listens. The more time you spend with Penelope, you realize that she tends to, even if she doesn't understand what you are saying, she tends to pick up on cues. So as parents, we felt that it was best for us. I'm not saying that's the same for everybody, but for us, we felt that she would benefit more. So we have set our goals every year. We do her EHCP plan, and then we set our goals for her. We pick what she's been able to do at the end of the year, what she's not been able to do, what we need to reinforce. And then when she's able, we believe that at some point when she's able to overcome all the difficulties, all the tasks that we've set for her, then she can move on to a normal school. But I guess it is a personal preference thing. So it isn't true that all children do have to go to special needs school. It is based on what their abilities are, what difficulties they are facing, and the parents' personal choices.
Okay, and we'll come to you as well, Auntie Shirley, because I know Jerome is in mainstream school. So I
Yes,
guess.
yeah, Jerohe is in mainstream school with resources. They've got resources that help him there as well. So they've got a special education needs section in his mainstream school, and he's got an EHC plan. Okay, before somebody asks, his educational healthcare plan. It's a plan that is done like like Tifia said in the beginning or before. It's a plan where they do, and then you have your aims and goals and how they are going to meet it and what is going to be done to help them achieve that. So he's in the mainstream school, but he's got all of those resources, and he's got a one-to-one teacher that takes him to class, that explains things to him on his level, and we put him in the mainstream school open-mindedly, saying that if he goes in and we see that it's not going to help him, we are not going to force him to stay in there. Because if you get, like if you say, you get a lot of people around you who are like, and all those things, which is very, very frustrating. But we just went in there open-minded and said, if it doesn't work, we will just let him go to special needs school where he will get the adequate resources and care there. But lucky for us, he's thriving because he's still got all the resources that he needs. He's got the help that he needs there. So he's thriving. So we want him to stay there, but we are still open minded, and we're going to change our mind and send him to special needs school if we think he's come to a place that he can't function anymore in the mainstream school. Yes.
Okay. So it's very down to it's very child specific, and of course down to the parents as well, and what you feel again is best for your child, not necessarily what is being done or what other people are telling you to do, because people have a lot of opinions, and that's not necessarily what is best for your child or who you know. Okay, so moving on to the next statement, is children with autism may lose skills as they get older. And we'll briefly touch on this before we move on to the last statement. So I'll start with Aunt Shelley first. If you want to touch on this.
Well, I'll say that is false. Like I said, consistency is key, and sometimes it's difficult for them to acquire the skill or learn that skill or be good with that. But what I've noticed is the moment they get into it, that's it. They just move along with it, and then it just goes. So you just have to be consistent and not give up. So they don't lose it. It's there. It's there for them to always get back on it when they need it. So no, they don't. It's there.
Okay. And then I'll come to Duffy on the next statement on stimming, because I think it was her that mentioned it earlier, if I'm not mistaken. So, stimming, repetitive behavior like rocking or flapping, can be a healthy method of personal expression and sometimes a method of communication for some people with autism. So, just to kind of put into context, this may be sometimes like humming as well. So, like, moving back and forth. Sometimes it might be hitting, constantly tapping things or hitting themselves and then moving back and forth, or moving things with their hands, making noise. That's what stimming is referring to. So I'll come to Diffie on that. Is this a myth or a fact? And maybe very briefly touch on your experience on it. We'll come to Anne Shelley as well. Very briefly, Rod, touch
Okay.
on your experiences on that as well.
Okay, so it is a fact. As I said earlier, our children, whatever it is that they're doing, they have a reason that they're doing it. So they use it as a method of communication, things to calm themselves when they're agitated, ways to express how they are feeling. It is for them their way of expressing themselves. So for Penelope, she needs stimulation a lot. She has a lot of sensory issues. So for her, it's just rocking things in her hands all the time, and you cannot take those away. I mean, we call them her baby.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear her crying, my son will come running, Mommy, Mommy, Penelope lost one of her babies. You know, and that is the thing. For her, it calms her down. And when you take those away from her, her behavior is different. When she has those, it calms her down. And it's, I mean, we use it against her sometimes when we want her to do something that we want. But it is absolutely true. I mean, a lot of people try to get rid of these behaviors without going through the proper ways. When all is right with them and they do not need these external stimulations, they will let it go. But you need to realize that it is their way of calming down, expressing themselves, showing how they're feeling, and just let them be.
Yeah. And we'll come to you, Aunt Shelley.
Well, mine has got things that he uses for his stimming. So he loves trains. So if he's getting overwhelmed or if he's getting overstimulated and he needs something to calm himself down, well, you hear train sounds. There are some things they do that sometimes might be very annoying or disruptive for you. But if you choose your battles well, you see that it's actually helping them and you also have a good day if you let it be. And like Diffie said, when they don't need it anymore, they come out of it. So mine has got the train sounds and it's different kinds of trains. So you either get a freight train that's just doing wow, 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 wow all the time. He's calming himself down, it suits him. And then we've got the rubbish, he calls them. So you put things in the recycle bin and anything that makes noise, like bags and all these crisps, the crisps, sachet and all those things. You find them under his bed, under his pillow, everywhere. So you might see me in town with all those things in my handbag. I'm not crazy. It's just we need it for the day to go well. So you just have him doing this, or he's got the bottles as well that he just doing this the whole time for like an hour, 20 minutes, depends on how long he needs it, and you just have to go through it. And like I said, when you choose your battles well, the day will end well for you. Because we as we term ourselves to think we are normal, we also need all these kind of things. We also stim and do all these things, sometimes unaware. We sit and we rock, we hum just to calm ourselves down. So it's something normal that they do. It's just that when they do it, we realize or we see it. And ours is more like we've done it for ages, so we don't really see that we're doing that. But it's a healthy and normal thing for them to do. And when they grow out of it or when they don't need it anymore, they put it aside and then move on to another noisier item or something else that is going to help them. Yeah. And then with time, you just get used to it. You don't even realize. You hear the sound and you're like, oh, okay, we are calming down. Yeah. So you have that as well.
Exactly. And it's like meeting new people. Sometimes you do things that kind of gets people annoyed, or like it rubs them up the wrong way, and you didn't even realize that you were doing that thing. And that might be, you're like, oh, sorry, I didn't even realize I was bopping my leg up and down. I do that. Sometimes people are like, calm down. I'm like, I'm calm. I'm okay. But your leg is moving. But that's just our way of coping. Just because ours is more internalized, but theirs is very expressive, we just tend to notice it more. But it's just all of us trying to find our different ways of coping with different things. So yeah, but I
Comfort
think
likes hitting people to calm herself down. I mean, we've all gotten used to it, but it
yeah,
annoys us, but we get used to it. It's one of those things.
exactly,
Like I
exactly.
said, choose your battles.
Another very key life lesson. So we've got be a detective. Don't stop trying and choose your battles. These are the three key things we've learned from today, if nothing at all. Be a detective, choose your battles, and never stop trying to find out what's wrong. So we'll quickly, I say quickly, but we'll kind of bring around this session, kind of bringing this off to a close, and kind of end with the different types of autism that you can get. As previously mentioned and explained by Dufia, that it is a spectrum, kind of like the colors of the rainbow and like an arch. You can get different people that are on this end, different people that are on this end, and you go everybody else who may be scattered in the middle as well. And these are kind of the four main different types that we've kind of chosen to kind of highlight, and we will spend time going through each of them as well at later stages. So there is the childhood disintegrative disorder, or Heller's syndrome. You've got the pervasive, developmental disorder, or which is not otherwise specified, so it doesn't necessarily fit into a specific category. You've got the low functioning autistics, or the high functioning autistics. And these two are kind of the main ones which I believe most people are familiar with. So the low functioning autistics are what you would call CANers, those who have CANers autism, and the high functioning autistics are those who have Asperger's syndrome as well. And those are kind of the higher end. So they're super functioning, they may be super verbal, kind of normally people refer to them as super, super smart generally. But again, it's very different depending on the person or the individual. So I'm not sure if Defy or Shirley want to come in and add in some last minute words before we kind of round up, kind of rush this bit, but I think we'll go into more detail about what each of them are and kind of the characteristics that each of them would show, general characteristics, because again, every child is different. So I don't know if they want to come in and say anything.
I would say like it's on the screen right now. When you read the low functioning and you read the high functioning, you think, okay, this is attributed to this particularly and this, but there are some children or adults that you find between these two, as well. So like we said, it's not always the same. You always Is quite, you go in there and there are some things that you find that are quite surprising when you start talking and learning about autism. And I know with the other sessions we'll go through that individually for people to really understand. So you can be in the middle as well. You can be in between the low functioning and the high functioning as well, because there will be some things that you see here and there that you find both in one person. Because I've got one at home. Yeah. So you can have someone in between as well. So not really specific to one person or assign that this person is in this and this person is in that and does this. Definitely some people, there are definitely some people who are in between as well.
Yeah, for example, so there's an example of a characteristic of a low function autistic, would be the fact that their stimming is very noticeable. And that's something that both of our mothers here have, expressed that both of their kids have that. And then you've got the other side, so Asperger's, which is a high function autistic, can read, write, and speak. So you've also got, Penelope now says a few words. You've got Jirohi, who's able to speak and forms full sentences. And again, these are both characteristics of both low function and high function autistics. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, okay, they're here or they're there, but they can be everywhere. So I don't know if Dufia has anything that she wants to add at this point.
Um, I think when you really talk about the different types of autism, there it's very difficult to place a child in one particular category. CDD, mostly they say it comes with language and social functions and motor skills. Motor skills is the child being able to, I mean, for the mothers, you understand when you go and do your gross motor skills and fine motor skills, picking up things, walking, running, that kind of thing. And when you talk about PDD, mostly that is socialization and communication. But you will find that all our children, my child has, she has, what's it called? Certain symptoms from CDD and some from PDD. She's not very communicative. When you talk about low function, she has some symptoms from there, and high functioning, she has certain things from there. She never forgets. She has the brain of an elephant. She never forgets anything. You put something here, she saw it 3 years ago. She will come back for it in the same place. She never forgets. I mean, they will tell you that there are different types. That's what the experts say. But it's very difficult to place one child in one particular category of autism.
Yeah. And just to clarify, CDD is childhood disintegrative disorder, and PDD would be the pervasive developmental disorder that she was referring to. Yes. So I guess really just kind of summarize key points, which I think I said about 5 times now, is be a detective. And I think they could not say that enough. Be a detective. Second point would be just don't give up in trying to find out what is wrong with your child in terms of in relation to their stimming. So if they're crying, just like any baby, I mean, if they're crying, there's generally something wrong with them. That's why they're showing that particular behavior. And also another thing that was mentioned is just consistency and routine, which I think is something that they both mentioned as well has helped both of their kids. So just keep into that routine, sticking to that, because if they know it, and I think we all like routine. I mean, me personally, I thrive on routine and making sure that things are organized.
That is an understatement.
We won't go into that. But
Well,
She has OCD.
oh wow. We will talk about that sometime.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that.
another time. But those are the 3 main key points, which I think if nothing else has been heard, I think those 2 are very key and useful to any parent and even those who have relatives or know somebody. These are things that you can help or contribute towards, helping the life of the child be smoother and easier for them. Yes, Diffie.
I just wanted to add one thing. I think one thing that I have come across in other parents that really puts them back or sets them back is denial. I had a lot of people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, would you too you have to refuse it, you have to do that." I mean, there is no point in saying my child doesn't have any difficulties when they do. When you are in denial, it prevents you from helping your child because you're not putting in any effort to tackle the difficulties that the child is having. As a parent, yes, it's not ideal. No parents want to wake up one day and hear that my child has this condition, be it cancer, be it a blindness, be it whatever the condition. And no parents wants to hear that the child is sick. But accepting and facing the problem face head on, it's one of the best things that you can do for your child. Accepting that the child has difficulties and fighting to help your child, it doesn't make any difference. The only difference it makes is that it makes your child's life better. So whenever I come across parents who have first had the diagnosis or seen the difficulties, is I tell them that, you know what, face it head on. It's not beyond you. God gave you that child for a reason because He knows that you can tackle it. He didn't give these children to anybody. They are special. They've got abilities. They make things possible. And you have got to realize that you have that strength to make it work for you and for them. These children are our responsibilities. Your sole aim in life is to make their lives good. So you owe it to yourself, to that child, and to God to do whatever is possible to make that child succeed. And being in denial, it only impedes your efforts and the foresight for you to help your child. So add that to the points that the parents need to remember.
Yes.
And it just delays your child, and at the end of the day, both of you are going to lose out on a lot of things because early intervention is the key to
Yes.
everything. So you just say, everything said then you jitum.
Adding,
Jitum
and then
netu
they
wana mo.
Shirley. Up to
Jitum
now,
netu
I mean,
wana
I
mo.
still get days
I
where
mean,
you
there's
wake
still
up
this
with
thing
tears,
behind your head that
you
says
know.
that it's not true, but you have to know, like we said in the beginning, there is no cure for it because a medical condition. No akopaka se me compare drew e di aman into bibi drew na de ne ko Ghana se won konom no be yi anase ne nananko yi ne sei no oba sa no be sa de aba jitum the teacher for kan e mo aba person de bo na de bo akola na de aboa no ama akola no so akọ baby, just like some people see my son and they're like, hey, Nana, your partner, they only need income, means that it's doable. You just have to accept and then just move on. And when you accept, you see that it will never get easy, but you will see that it's doable.
Doors open. I mean,
And
you become a fountain of knowledge.
yes,
Believe
and
me.
you realize the amount of people that will come to you for help, and then you help them as well.
It's
You
incredible.
become an expert.
Sometimes
It's so good.
this is an incredible journey.
Yeah,
I mean, it is hard. I'm not going to lie to any parent and say, oh, it gets easier or whatnot. It
never
doesn't.
gets easy. It
Ending
never
from
gets.
beginning to the end, ending,
Mm.
because there'll always be a
What
heaven
end?
course. And
There's no end. There's no end. It just continues. It's like a ring. You just
the
go round
cycle,
and round and round.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, but staying on top of it, it is the best thing,
Yes.
and it's self-fulfilling as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Auntie Shirley will look at Jerry and say, "Ooh, I've done a great job." You know, you
Yes.
pat yourself on the back. You've done something. You've made a difference, and that is great. So I encourage every parent that see what your child has. Only you know the potential that your
Mm-hmm.
child has in them. So see that potential and make it possible for your child. Make it
Yes.
possible. Only you can do that. Make it
Yes.
possible.
And I have nothing else to add on top of that. Absolutely nothing else. So we'll end it right here. I would like to say a big thank you to everybody that was watching, both on
Thank
YouTube and
you.
Facebook and wherever that you were streaming in from. And forgot to mention this during the show, but there was a number kind of going along on the screen. So if you have any questions at all or any particular topics that you would like for us to touch on in future segments, then please do send a message or even put it in the comment section under the videos, and we'll be sure to try to pick that up and touch on that in future shows. Thank you all for streaming, and we hope that you have learned something and enjoyed the show. Have a blessed evening.
Or morning, wherever you are.
Morning
Or
or
afternoon.
afternoon, whenever you watch it.
Have a
Exactly.
great day.
And see you all
Bye.
next time.
Bye.
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 Bye.